Good morning, everybody. I will call this meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee to order. Thank you so much for accommodating our surprise start time at 10:30 a.m. I did want to acknowledge, I think we're still having a few small technical difficulties. Members are having trouble getting on the internet, so they do have copies of the bills at their desk, but please be patient if they're unable to pull up other references and things like that. And as always, if we are staring at our computers or phones, it's to assist us in evaluating the legislation before us, not for personal reasons or distractions. With that, will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Flores?
Present.
Senator Orenshaw?
Here.
Senator Lang? Here. Senator Nguyen? Senator Hansen? Here. Senator Krasner? Here. Senator Ellison? Chair Scheibel?
I am here. Please mark Senator Nguyen absent excused. She is in the Finance Committee right now, and they're also doing important work there. So I will go ahead and open up the hearing on SB 465 and welcome our presenters down to the front. I'm not sure if you've presented in this room before. In order to turn on the microphones, there's a little button that looks like a sticker was left on the table. You press that, and when it turns red is the time to speak.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Drew Cross, D-R-E-W-C-R-O-S-S, and I'm the State Forensic Program Director. I'm accompanied today by Dr. Rhonda Dillinger, Deputy Administrator of Clinical Services, and remotely with Dr. Raven, Statewide Psychiatric Medical Director in Las Vegas. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you about SB 465. We'd like to offer a brief overview and then be available to answer any questions. SB 465 has two parts, both of which relate to the treatment of defendants committed to the custody of the Division of Public and Behavioral Health for treatment to competency. The first relates to the process of obtaining court permission to involuntarily administer psychiatric medication to an incompetent defendant who is refusing to take medication needed to restore their competency to stand trial. It tasks the treating psychiatrist to submit a report to the court, the district attorney with submitting a motion for a hearing on the issue, and it requires the court to make specific findings before issuing such an order. This codifies U.S. Supreme Court case law and delineates the process most Nevada courts presently follow. The next section revises the number of evaluations required regarding an individual who has received restoration treatment. Currently, 3 reports are required, but this has shown over the years to be inefficient and not in line with national standards. The bill changes this to 2 evaluations when both evaluators concur in their findings, opinion, and recommendations. If the 2 evaluators disagree regarding an individual's competency to proceed, a 3rd evaluator will be assigned. This will add to the efficiency of the statewide forensic system without sacrificing the quality or impact of reports. The bill also clarifies some language. SB 465 will lead to consistency across the state with regard to obtaining court permission to deny a defendant's right to refuse medication and is modeled closely after U.S. Supreme Court case law. The reduction from 3 evaluations to 2 will result in better use of evaluator time and bring Nevada in line with national standards while preserving the safeguards for the quality of the assessments and the fairness of the judicial process. Clinicians who previously completed the 3rd evaluation will now be able to do one of the 2 evaluations required. Simply put, it is more efficient to clinicians, the clients, and the courts to reduce the number of total evaluations required per client from 3 to 2 and is reflective of the current perspective nationwide. Thank you for your consideration of this bill, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, we will open it up for questions, starting with Senator Ellison.
Madam Chair, how many states are doing this now?
Currently, only Hawaii is utilizing the 3 evaluator format. Most states are utilizing 2 and at times even 1 evaluation.
Okay, so there's very few. So, but if they had any problems when they do, inject them or however they do it, I mean, does it calm them down? Is that what it does, or?
Drew Cross, for the record, that's a great question, Senator Ellison. Typically, and this is in over 90% of the cases, that 3rd evaluation that we had been utilizing, 90% or more of the time, that was consensus with the first 2 evaluators. It wasn't adding a great deal to the process, but the resources that required were great.
Other questions from members of the committee? Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair Pazina. I think I'm following up on Senator Ellison's questions a little bit. Under current law, if you're trying to restore someone to competency and the physician feels that certain medications are needed, are you experiencing frequently that the patient is not willing to take those medications?
It is common within our population of forensic clients for refusal of medication or treatment to be part of the process and one of the challenges that we manage.
Thank you. And Chair, may I have a brief follow-up? Thank you. And currently, what procedures do you follow when you run into that situation where they're not willing to take the medications under current law?
So there are really two scenarios in case law to support. We have medication for immediate safety to sell for others. This is under case law Harper. We also have medication for competency, and that's more what this bill refers to, which is these are medications that through the prescriber are utilized to restore an individual to competency.
And a brief follow-up, Chair. Thank you. And currently then, if you have a patient who's unwilling to take those medications to restore to competency, does your division go seek a court order, or what do you do currently?
Ronna Dillinger for the record, RONNA DILLINGER. Presently, the facilities Lakes Crossing and Stein generally follow what's in statute as far as inquiring of the court if for a court order for permission to deny someone's right to refuse medication. So there is that is occurring to some extent right now. This process will make it more consistent, I think, statewide.
Thank you, Dr. Dillinger. Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair Flores.
Okay, can you please walk me through the process in determining the type of medication, what's the medication approved? How do we make those determinations? Now, do we know?
Those determinations are made by a psychiatrist who's also a certified evaluator in forensic care. They are experienced with the population. The process is not taken lightly. They use the least invasive, lowest dose to start with. They titrate from there. It's done with every precaution being taken.
Madam Chair, if I may follow up. And so presently, they go to competency court to make sure they can, whether or not they can stand trial. And I'm assuming that there's individuals that are in this almost of a treadmill, unfortunately, that they keep coming in and out and realizing that just unfortunately they're not ready. Do we have any data where we've identified individuals that, and I'm using the analogy of a treadmill, whatever makes it make more sense for you, please utilize whatever analogy make more sense for you. But for me, the analogy of the treadmill, do we have any data to suggest we have X amount of individuals identified now that we believe are on that treadmill because they're not taking the necessary medication? We think that potentially this triggering would allow us to address X amount of individuals. Do we have any type of data?
Drew Cross for the record. Very insightful question, Senator Flores. Yes, we do have what we refer to as frequent utilizers of our services. Treatment is fragile. Restoring someone to competency and continuing that medication is paramount. And that's really what this comes down to, is keeping somebody medicated through the process. There is an issue just with human metabolism, how we metabolize medications. Coming on and off these medications over time, it is more difficult to achieve that initial level of restoration. To get someone to that highest point, again, each additional time is more challenging. So it is, again, very important that people maintain the medication regimen that's been prescribed. We do have some data that would indicate a narrow group of individuals who frequently utilize our services where medication adherence is an ongoing issue in their life, and we would be happy to provide that.
Thank you.
Other questions from members of the committee? Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I'm just wondering, you said that some defendants can decide not to take medication even when it's recommended. What's the public policy currently then behind allowing someone who's incarcerated to not take medication if they don't want to? Is that Fourth Amendment, or what's the rationale there?
Well, in the forensic setting, there are a few different pathways, and Drew Cross for the record. If an individual doesn't require medication for the restoration of competency, it's a bit of a non-issue and they can proceed through the process. If an individual is posing an immediate threat to themselves or the environment around them, we can emergently medicate under Harper. And if an individual appears to be incompetent, but with probability for restoration, we can seek out what we refer to here as the cell hearing to have an order instituted where they are medicated to competency.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the indulgence. Do you make, what kind of efforts at competency restoration do you make at Lakes and at Stein prior to going to the medication route? Are there, classes or anything like that, or is it more of that the patients are beyond that point when they get to Lakes and Stein to have a competency restoration that does not involve medication?
Drew Cross for the record. Again, great question. The entire milieu is designed for competency restoration. So we do seek out the least invasive way to restore an individual to competency. That can be through our legal process course, education. We utilize peace officers who are also MHTs by background. We call it a sponsor. This is an individual assigned to the client who's able to answer questions about this complicated process, facilitate contact with their attorney. The treatment team model is really based on what the client specifically and individually needs to get competent. We work with the team to determine what's best for that client. And it's individualized. Not everyone is going to require a cell hearing. Not everyone's going to require any type of invasive maneuver to bring them to restore their competency. So we do follow a least invasive model.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Thank you, Chair.
All right, other questions from members of the committee? I have a couple questions as well, and as I'm kind of getting up to speed here, I was browsing Harper, I'm reading the current statute. I think some of my questions might be more about the current state of the law, but I hope that you'll indulge me since you are the experts here. And the first thing that I want to clarify is that we're talking about both emergent and non-emergent situations, correct?
Yes. Drew Cross for the record.
Okay, and the current practice requires a court order to involuntarily administer medication, right?
Yes, when we're restoring competency, correct.
And if this bill were to pass, we would still require a court order in any situation before administering medication involuntarily.
Drew Cross for the record, that is correct.
Okay, so.
I'm sorry, and just to clarify, this is specific to cell. For Harper, it would not require a court order. It is done emergently on the unit. So these are emergency situations that require an immediate response, just to draw the divergence there.
Okay, so that kind of was my question, was do we have current policies that are different between emergency situations and non-emergency situations?
Yes.
And we're going to maintain the difference between those two?
Drew Cross for the record, yes, we will.
Okay, so we would still be allowing the involuntary administration of medication in emergency situations without a court order?
Yes, to bring safety to the individual and the unit.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question was, I think that about the standards. When we're administering medication involuntarily, so in an emergency situation, you indicated it's to maintain safety within the unit, is that right?
For the individual and the other clients and staff around the individual, yes.
Okay, and then when we move from that emergency situation to that non-emergency situation, is it fair to say that the only factor we're considering is the restoration of competency?
So these are somewhat two different pathways. When there's an emergency on the unit, and an individual is in immediate danger to themselves or others, when there's risk to harm to self and life, We can emergently medicate under a doctor's order, so there's still a pathway and there's a check and balance to that. When someone is following the milieu, the progress of the restoration system, and yet they are not entirely competent, they're incompetent with probability, we will initiate the cell process, which is done through court order.
Okay, thank you. And I think my main question is this: the standard that's utilized for determining if a court is going to grant that order for the cell process to involuntarily administer medication is an order to restore competency, which I think, but I'm looking for clarification, is actually a little bit different than what a medical doctor might be considering. It's not about the person's quality of life. It's not about their, mental health in the way that we normally think of it. It's about their ability to understand the trial process and participate. Or am I wrong?
Ronna Dillinger for the record. It's a good distinction because yes, you're right that it is for the narrow purpose of restoration, to get them competent. So there will probably be other benefits as far as mental stability and that sort of thing that inherently go along with restoring their competency with forced medication. But yes, this is for the narrow focus for restoration.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I think those are all of my questions, but Senator Ellison has another one. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And one of the questions, when you have to meditate somebody, do you tie them down, or how do you do that? Or do you take them into the hospital and do it in a control room or something?
Drew Cross for the record. Great question, Senator Ellison. It is within the controlled environment of the forensic hospital, utilizing the least invasive process to maintain safety for the client while those medications are administered. They're administered by registered nurses with the presence of peace officers, and always done through our doctor's order.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think I see any other questions. Thank you so much for being here today, making this early time work, and for your presentation, answering all of our questions. At this time, we'll move into testimony. You can feel free to have a seat back where you were before, and we will invite anybody wishing to testify in support of SB 465 in person to the front of the room here in Carson City and Las Vegas. I don't see anybody coming forward to give support testimony, so we'll go to the phones, please, for support testimony on SB 465.
If you would like to testify in support of SB 465, please press star 9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
All right, we will go to testimony in opposition to SB 465. Anybody wishing to give opposition testimony is invited forward here in Carson City and in Las Vegas. We will start in Carson City in person. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Scheibel, Vice Chair Flores, and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Paloma Guerrero, P-A-L-O-M-A-G-U-E, R-R-E-R-O, on behalf of the Clark County Public Defender's Office. We have two concerns with the bill that we're working with the sponsors to resolve, and I really want to thank Director Cross, Dr. Ronna Dillinger, and Dr. Raven. They've been incredible to work with. Our first concern is with Section 1, Subsection 5, which states that the order continues in full force and effect through the final adjudication in the criminal action against the defendant. I think we all know that a criminal matter can last up to years, so it's a big issue for us that these orders remain until the case is resolved. And the way that these cell hearings are working right now, these orders are not indefinite. The order will have a time frame in which there needs to be another court date to see whether the medications are working, whether there needs to be changes, and at one point there needs to be another cell hearing. There's a big problem with having an order be indefinite because these orders need to be revisited depending on how a person is responding to the medication. There's also an issue if someone is sent back to the Clark County Detention Center or any jail in the state. Jails often don't have the same prescription ability that Lakes and Stein have, so their drugs could change when they go back to jail. When they're at Lakes or Stein, they also monitor very closely any sort of potential side effects that drugs can have. They monitor their cholesterol levels, they take vitals, they take precautions like giving the drugs at nighttime. And these are things that the jail simply can't accommodate. So we're concerned with the safety of our clients if these orders aren't revisited regularly. We have presented language to fix subsection 5, and again, I think in working with the bill presenters, we're going to be able to come to a consensus on that. Our second concern is on section 4, subsection 1, about one of the evaluators being on the treatment team and the other being someone outside of the treatment team. The issue we have with this is that often our clients are incompetent because they have very specific delusions that make them unable to assist in their defense. And their delusions could be something that would still allow them to give all the right answers to these competency screening questions. And only someone on the treatment team that really understands their delusions and knows about them, that knows their history, could really assess whether they have regained the competency or still need further treatment. For example, I had a client who presented very competent. They could answer all the questions about their case. They knew how the court process worked. But if you let them talk long enough, you would start hearing about how every famous person to ever exist is famous because they shook his hand, how he was the king of Ireland, and how he went to space with LeBron James. And again, I want to thank the bill sponsors. They've been very open to hearing out these concerns, and I look forward to keep working together on this.
Good morning, Angela Knott from the Washoe County Public Defender's Office, ANGELA-KNOTT. We are in opposition also regarding subsection 5 of section 1. As stated by Clark County Public Defender's Office, we are working with the sponsors to remove the language that makes it an indefinite order, and there needs to be some sort of a review process because every single case is unique and different, and we need to be coming back and seeing, is this medication working? Do we still need a medication? Where are they in their treatment plan? So I think it's very important to have reviews throughout this process. As for the rest, I just want to address sections 1, 2, and 3 real briefly. As the sponsor stated, SB 465 will help ensure consistency in this process. Right now, it is not as transparent as it should be. And what this bill is seeking to address is bringing some consistency that all parties are engaged in this process and that some due process rights are being protected. For those reasons, we do support the bill, but we are in opposition when it comes to the subsection 5 of section 1. Thanks.
Good morning, Chair Scheibel. I was checking to see if it was still good morning. It is. Good morning, Chair Scheibel, Vice Chair Flores, and members of the committee. Jennifer Noble on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association, and pursuant to rules of the committee, we are in opposition this morning to the bill. However, it's just based on section 4, sub 1, and the provision providing that one of the evaluators must not be a member of the treatment team. We don't want to limit that because sometimes there aren't necessarily enough psychologists or psychiatrists available to do these evaluations in a timely manner. And we also agree that members of the treatment team can have valuable insight into a particular defendant's mental state, changes, progress, or decompensation, et cetera. But I am confident that we'll be able to come to a resolution, and they have been very good about hearing our concerns. Thank you.
All right, I don't see anybody else coming forward to give opposition testimony on SB 465, so we will go to the phones, please, for opposition testimony on SB 465.
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 465, please press star 9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
All right, we will go to neutral testimony on SB 465. Anybody wishing to give neutral testimony in person is invited forward. I don't see anybody coming forward, so we'll go to the phones, please, for neutral testimony on SB 465.
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 465, please press star 9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
All right, that brings us to the conclusion of testimony. I'm going to invite our presenters back up for a brief follow-up question and any closing remarks you might have. And my question is, it sounds like from the opposition that we heard, you've already been in conversations with a number of stakeholders, and there's a concern about having one evaluator from outside of the treatment team. And I was hoping that you could just give us kind of an update on whether that's something that you're open to changing, there's a reason for that, or just give us a little bit more context.
Ronna Dillinger for the record. Yes, we're open to changing that, and so we've been working on the wording, and as soon as we kind of finalize our wording internally, we'll be sending it out to the stakeholders, the public defenders and district attorneys to get their feedback, but I think we're pretty close to a consensus on that part.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And if you have any other closing remarks, please go ahead.
Drew Cross for the record. DPBH is confident that through ongoing collaboration, we will reach consensus with our community partners at the DA and PD's office on this bill.
Thank you so much. That's what we like to hear, people collaborating and solving problems. So thank you so much for being here. I will now, and for working on this, I will now close the hearing on SB 465 and open up the hearing on SCR 3 and welcome forward our presenters on SCR 3. I know we have Senator Pezzina here in person. I think we also have presenters either in yes, we do have a presenter in Las Vegas. I'm not sure if we have anybody on Zoom, but I'm sure Senator Pezzina will fill us in.
Good morning, Chair Scheibel, Vice Chair Flores, and members of the Senate Committee on Judiciary. For the record, my name is Julie Pezzina, representing Senate District 12 in Clark County, and I'm here today to present Senate Concurrent Resolution 3, which directs the Joint Interim Standing Committee on the Judiciary to conduct an interim study concerning human trafficking, and thank you so much for having us here to present today. Despite significant efforts in recent years to address human trafficking in this state, Nevada continues to experience some of the highest trafficking rates in the country. Senate Concurrent Resolution 3 proposes a comprehensive study led by the Joint Interim Standing Committee on the Judiciary to improve Nevada's strategy for combating human trafficking. The resolution aims to enhance prevention, support victims, and hold offenders accountable through a coordinated and sustainable approach. It brings together many entities, including law enforcement, prosecutors, nonprofits, government entities, and academic partners to assess current efforts and develop actionable solutions. SCR 3 marks a critical opportunity to take a holistic approach to addressing human trafficking in Nevada, and this bill initially came to me from the Junior League of Las Vegas, and then we coordinated with Mr. Joel Kisner, who's here to co-present today. We will have both him as well as Tia Mathis Coleman in Las Vegas. She's the president of Junior League. So I'm going to hand it over to Joel, and then after that, he will hand it over to Tia, and then we'll be complete and ready for questions. Thank you so much again.
Good morning, Chair Scheibel and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of SCR 3. My name is Joel Kisner, Joelkisner, on behalf of our rescue and my own company, Pinnacle Consulting and Advisors. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with over 27 years of experience. For 20 years, I investigated crimes against persons, including sexual assault, homicide, abuse, and crimes against children. This resolution represents more than an acknowledgement of the trafficking crisis in Nevada. It is a focused and structured solution developed in coordination with key partners. Over the years, Nevada has taken steps to combat human trafficking and recognizing the need for coordinated and sustained action. In 2021, Senator Krasner led the introduction of AB 143, which created the Human Trafficking Coalition. This coalition, supported by a bipartisan group of assembly members and senators, established a statewide structure to connect service providers, law enforcement, and state agencies. These efforts laid the groundwork for what exists today and demonstrates that Nevada does not need to start over, but rather we need to strengthen and expand on what is already in place to ensure the coalition can function as a statewide, fully integrated system. Despite our efforts, Nevada continues to rank among the highest states in the nation for human trafficking cases per capita. From 2019 to 2023, the state led the country with an average of 58.48 victims per 100,000 residents. Despite existing efforts, this ranking has not improved. To better understand the crisis, I'll briefly summarize an Arizona State University study published in 2020 that examined 833 child sex trafficking cases in southern Nevada from 2011 to 2019 and included 922 child victims. This data is specific to minors and reflects the crisis of child sex trafficking. The key findings in the report were that 107 cases, traffickers moved children across state lines. Only 28.1% of the victims were cooperative with the investigations. 215 cases involved physical violence, including kidnapping, battery, sexual assault, and strangulation, as well as psychological violence. The majority of cases were identified through vice stings and casino security. While this report is limited to child victims of sex trafficking, it is important to recognize that human trafficking in Nevada also affects adults in sex and human trafficking. All victims face similar coercive tactics, trauma and exploitation, and often encounter additional barriers to identification and support. SCR 3 is designed to address the full spectrum of trafficking across all age groups and types. SCR 3 is not a symbolic measure. It initiates a strategic study that will assess, enhance, and align Nevada's statewide response to human trafficking. It brings together operational partners with a mandate to act, with key objectives being evaluating and developing improvements for the effectiveness of the existing human trafficking coalition, reviewing Nevada's legal framework and identifying gaps and areas for possible improvement, expanding mandatory reporting protocols across additional professions to increase early identification, seek to develop ways to adapt successful domestic violence strategies for trafficking victims, structuring a public-private partnership for standards, oversight, service coordination, and a cost savings for the state, and work to develop sustainable funding and operational models for long-term success. SCR 3 will enhance the coalition by developing more structure, broader partnerships, and measurable alignment. It introduces operational clarity by defining responsibilities, standardizing procedures, and encouraging information sharing and accountability across systems. The goal is to further develop the coalition into a high-functioning, state-integrated mechanism for preventing, identifying, and interrupting trafficking across Nevada. SCR 3 is backed by a diverse group of stakeholders that include law enforcement, prosecutors, nonprofit service providers, and academic institutions, of which many of whom were part of and collaborated in the creation of the existing Human Trafficking Coalition. SCR 3 will further enhance that effectiveness. Nevada cannot remain at the top of trafficking rankings, and SCR 3 will deliver a framework to reverse the trend by integrating systems, strengthening standards, and creating real accountability. This resolution provides the structure, once again, to identify what works and improve on what doesn't, unify public and private efforts under shared goals, and move from a fragmented reactive response process to a statewide coordinated system. I respectfully urge the support for SCR 3 so that Nevada can lead the nation not in trafficking statistics, but in solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Keisner, and we will go to Ms. Mathis Coleman in Las Vegas.
Good morning, Chair Scheibel and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Dr. Tia Mathis Coleman for the record. That's Tia, T-Y-A, Mathis, M-A-T-H-I-S, hyphen Coleman, C-O-L-E-M-A-N. I am here today on behalf of the Junior League of Las Vegas. We are a nonprofit organization made up of more than 500 women committed to advancing women's leadership through community impact, advocacy, and volunteer service. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Senate Concurrent Resolution 3 and to co-present alongside our fellow Junior League member and bill sponsor, Senator Julie Pacina. SCR 3 recognizes an urgent truth that human trafficking is not just a global problem, it's a Nevada problem. For far too long, our state has ranked among the highest in the nation for reported trafficking cases. Behind these numbers are real people, many of them women, children, and marginalized individuals who have experienced deep trauma, coercion, and exploitation, often hidden in plain sight in our very own communities. The Junior League of Las Vegas has spent the past several years partnering with organizations like St. Jude's Ranch for Children and Bia Shiro Foundation, offering our volunteer support, fundraising assistance, and public education to strengthen anti-trafficking initiatives in Southern Nevada. Through this work, we've seen firsthand the fragmented system that survivors must navigate. A system with gaps in service coordination, inconsistent access to trauma-enforced care, and limited oversight of programs that are meant to help. That is why SCR 3 is so vital. This resolution proposes an interim study that will examine our state's legal framework, reporting requirements, and support systems with the goal of creating a more coordinated and effective response to human trafficking. It will bring together stakeholders, law enforcement, service providers, survivors, advocates, and policymakers to identify best practices and build the kind of comprehensive response that crisis demands. We wholeheartedly support this study's emphasis on mandatory reporting across key sectors, including healthcare, education, hospitality, and security, where frontline professionals are uniquely positioned to identify trafficking. Proper training and resources are essential to empowering them to act decisively. Additionally, we commend the resolution's commitment to evaluating data collection and oversight mechanisms, as these are crucial for measuring progress and ensuring accountability in the fight against human trafficking. This resolution is not just a piece of legislation. It is a declaration of hope for survivors and a promise to hold human traffickers accountable. On behalf of the Junior League of Las Vegas, I urge you to support SCR 3. Together, under the principle of stronger together, we can make Nevada a safer and stronger place for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mathis Coleman. And I'd also like to draw everyone's attention. There was an amendment, and the staff here is incredible as always. So thank you so much for last moment adding this to Nellis and sharing. And it's really just to ensure that survivors have a voice in the study. And so we were trying to include a few tweaks at the end. And so everyone should have that, and we're open to any questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you so much. And we do have that conceptual amendment with us, and I will turn it over for questions we'll start with Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Chair. It's more of a comment than a question. I had kind of forgotten about that, but thank you for bringing up AB 143 from the 2021 session. That was really a team effort, that bill, the State of Nevada Human Trafficking Coalition. That had bipartisan support, bipartisan sponsors. The Assembly and the Senate passed it unanimously. The Nevada Department of Health and Human Services was involved. Law enforcement was involved. Our Attorney General and his office were involved. Signed into law by Governor Sisolak. So thank you for bringing this.
All right, Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm 100% supportive of the whole bill. I like, for the gentleman especially, in this very chamber, I think it was in 2011, we had this room packed with people. We had Attorney General Masto, who basically gave a whole presentation on human trafficking. John Hambrick, who was our colleague at the time, was co-sponsor of the legislation. And at that time, we had everybody in the state, law enforcement, doing this exact thing. And now, 15 years later, 14 years later, we're still talking about a study to deal with the problem. Now, you mentioned Nevada is still the worst in the nation, 58 per 100,000. I'm just kind of wondering, I mean, I've seen this literally every session we've had bills on human trafficking. I mean, every single session. And everybody in the legislature is in complete agreement on it. Yet the problem persists. If anything, it may have gotten worse, it sounds like. You, as a law enforcement officer who studied this right now, we're the worst. Who is the best? And what are the best practices that they are doing that we're not?
I believe, and I'm going to be, for the record, Joel Keisner. Appreciate that. I believe, and I'm shooting from the hip here on, I believe Rhode Island has the lowest number per capita of human trafficking victims across the nation. It's right around the Rhode Island area. The part of the SCR3 it came to me as an idea was leveraging something called a system of care. used in the medical treatment and coordinating a bunch of different multidisciplinary teams to get services delivered to somebody appropriately and accurately over time. And trying to move that into the human trafficking. Part of the study would be evaluating what these other states are doing. It's important to not only pay attention to what Nevada is, but Nevada is specific in the fact that we have so many tourists that come into town from different countries, from different states, and we have to understand that those people are coming into this state thinking sometimes something different. I won't get into that particular topic, but part of the study is to understand what other states are doing to make things more functionally better for not only just criminal prosecutions, but actually in the care for the trafficked victims, making sure that they're getting the services they need, making sure that all those things are aligned so nothing gets dropped. It's very hard when a victim comes forward or gets identified later in the process when there's addiction to drugs, when there's so many hurdles they have to get through, and getting and figuring out ways that investigations and services can be injected into it more timely and sooner is going to be a lot more helpful than where we're at now, where unfortunately law enforcement is the leading identifier of trafficked victims, according to that one report. And that's really the case. We need to expand that out so we find more people earlier and can have an ability to derail that process more timely.
Well, I agree. I'm glad we're studying it and all those issues you brought up. I guess the other question that we should study is what do the other studies that we've done just about every single session miss that we're going to now catch and help actually put a handle, get some with reduction in the number of cases per 100,000. So I'm just, as part of the study, I'm just asking basically, are you going to study the previous studies that we've done virtually every session since I've been a legislator and see what those that they missed perhaps?
Joel Keisner again. One of the things that made me a little uncomfortable, and I share your uncomfort with studies, is they tend to be done and set on a shelf and nothing gets done with them. With the private funding that is available now and some of the private funding that would follow if this continues, the private sector building these up and having actual legs underneath it that can follow from session to session, rather than trying to do one-offs where we're trying to change a law or a line in this particular area. We can actually look at it from a holistic standpoint. And one of the benefits and one of the strengths of that coalition that exists now is the things that they did to build those lanes and build that framework that's there. The foundation is there. What's missing are some of the meat on the bones, some of the leadership. And I think tapping into the leadership from the public-private partnership and developing something like that is going to be beneficial, because those people that assisted the state in building this coalition are still doing the work. They're still in those lanes, offering the services and conducting those actions. Alignment needs to be better between them, and that's something that can be addressed, make things a little more timely, but building that out and leveraging what's already there on the private sector to support the state in these goals is something that's just not fully developed yet, and that's one of the main focuses of SCR 3.
Well, I am 100% supportive. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad you brought the bill. It's a great bill. I just want to make sure at some point, rather than making us look good that we're trying to fight a problem, we actually come up with some way to actually reduce the amount of it going on. So 100% support of the study, what you're doing. I think you people are wonderful. I just okay, what have we done incorrectly for so long? So let's go forward. Maybe you guys are going to hit the thing that we've missed for the last 14 years and 7 sessions and find the actual possible solution to see those numbers coming down. So I salute the senator for bringing the bill, and I think it's a great bill, and hopefully next session we'll actually be able to come here and say, well, guess what? We've actually reduced it from 58 to 48 or something, so we can at least see that reduction. And Nevada's no longer number 1, but maybe number 10 or something. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions on the bill or the resolution? Senator Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ira was telling me, said that when they did the last presentation here many years ago, they brought all these pictures of these women that, for date nights or whatever, passing up and down the strip. but come to find out, they'd show the pictures, say, how old do you think these women are? And come to find out they're 13 to 16 years old. I mean, that's scary that they could deck them up that much. But the thing that I want to know is, this is a great bill, and it supports us 100%. But how many have we actually saved in Nevada that you're aware of? Does anybody know that?
The numbers I have right now are based off of the Arizona University study, because that information is provided to them by Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And that's the Southern Nevada Human Trafficking Task Force that they headed at, and a lot of that information flows to them. To get better at collecting the data in Nevada, I think we need to expand out where that information goes. And part of the process through building out SCR3 and doing the research, we can identify some of those that can actually be quick fixes. For an example, just in the couple of 2 years and getting to this particular point, having a conversation with UNLV, who is the data warehouse for the data set attached with the coalition here in Nevada, they are not getting data into that data set that's useful. Some of the conflicts is the fact that some of the data they need, there's privacy requirements because of if they're juveniles and different things that limit the information that can be shared, and MOUs and agreements need to be in place that aren't there. And so some of the things that can be fixed wouldn't even really need a legislative fix. It would just need this process to start going through and identifying, you're not getting the data, this is how we can fix it. We can create the MOUs and the framework for that and solve that one particular problem. That would give us a lot more better optics into what's happening specifically in Nevada, because what Arizona has is specifically something from LVMPD, who does do the bulk, but we're missing Henderson, North Las Vegas, and the rest of the state to a large degree for that getting down into the weeds and the minutia of what the numbers actually are. But we're still looking at just from that study from 2011 to 2019, 833 cases and 922 child victims. There isn't a lot of data that I can pull from right now that gives a great number on how we sit internationally, because there's disconnects in how that data is collated internationally. And when you come and look at things from an adult standpoint, those numbers don't usually address labor trafficking and forced criminal activity, which is some of the things I saw in some homicide investigations where folks were being trafficked into Las Vegas to carry out fraud at the casinos. And there was no sex involved in those arrangements, but they were labor trafficked and held prisoner for that effect until they ran out their use from a financial standpoint. So I wish I could give you more clear numbers, but the problem is we don't have a good sense of depth of the numbers because of some of the disconnects.
Follow up, ma'am. And I think that's amazing, just hearing them numbers. It's kind of shocking. And I just hope everybody that's out there realizes that they got daughters and granddaughters that could be actually kidnapped and put into these places. So I think we got to do whatever we can to stop this. But the problem is we've got to make the laws more strengthened strongly to these people that are doing the kidnapping and sticking them out there. I think that's, if we start putting these people away forever, then maybe it'll help stop some of this stuff. But we've got to be able to go after them, and that's how I feel. Well, thank you.
Thank you. And Joel Keisner, for the record, one of the things too, to your point, and Senator Hansen as well, domestic violence changed back in the 70s, where when law enforcement used to show up, if the victim didn't want to prosecute, you just drove away. And they changed back then, and over the decades, I saw reports change, the data collection changes, and things like that. As an example of the data gap, when you have a domestic violence situation, there's a set amount of data specific that you have to collect when you're taking the reports that feeds into the data that gives you more optics into what you're dealing with. That design does not exist in human trafficking. So when UNLV, example, is asking for specific amounts of data, that data they're asking for is not collected in a searchable way by law enforcement because that data isn't tagged. So little things like that are the focus of making things aligned better so that UNLV can do its job under the coalition and have the data set to actually be a functional part of the solution, not only from a prosecution standpoint, but a care standpoint as well. Thank you.
All right. Unless we have any additional questions, I think that concludes the presentation portion of the hearing. Thank you so much for being here, for presenting to us and answering all of our questions. We will move now into testimony, starting with testimony in person in support of SCR 3. Please come on down to the front in Carson City and Las Vegas to give your testimony. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Scheibel, Vice Chair Flores, members of the committee. For the record, Carlos Hernandez representing the Nevada State AFL-CIO. We are in full support of Senate Concurrent Resolution 3. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is William Horn with Western Public Affairs, representing SafeNest. SafeNest strongly supports the passage and implementation of SCR 3, which calls for an interim study on human trafficking in Nevada. As an organization with long-standing commitment to supporting survivors of domestic and sexual violence, we have seen firsthand the deep and often hidden intersections between those forms of victimization and human trafficking. While the number of clients who initially present with trafficking as their primary experience is comparatively small, we regularly encounter individuals who, over time, whether through residential programs, therapeutic services, or advocacy, reveal complex histories that include trafficking. Often, this is disclosed through coded language such as, "I was turned out," or "I had to earn," underscoring the layered and traumatic nature of trafficking that is frequently obscured by other forms of abuse. We believe that understanding trafficking not only as a standalone crime, but also as a component of broader victimization experiences is vital to developing effective interventions. This resolution's focus on exploring the complexities alongside improving systems of identification, response, and support is both timely and essential. SafeNest stands ready to contribute to this critical work. We're prepared to offer macro-level data and insights drawn from programs to help inform the committee's research and recommendations. We welcome the opportunity to collaborate and ensure that Nevada becomes a leader in recognizing and addressing the full spectrum of human trafficking. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I think Senator Orenshaw had something.
Oh, thank you, Chair. More of a comment, just former Majority Leader of the Assembly, Horn, when I served with you, when you chaired Assembly Judiciary and Assembly Corrections Parole and Probation Committee, did some pioneering work in this issue, trying to help victims of trafficking, and I just wanted to recognize the pioneering work you did when you chaired the Assembly counterpart of this committee, Judiciary and Corrections, Parole and Probation. I know you're a real pioneer on the issue and trying to help victims. I just wanted to recognize that. Thank you, Chair, for the moment.
Thank you, Senator.
Good afternoon, Chair Scheibel, members of the committee. My name is Chancelyn Sisson. It's ChancelynSisson with Strategies 360 here on behalf of the Victim Policy Institute. The Victim Policy Institute is a 501c4 legislative advocacy arm of the National Center for Victims of Crime. VPI gives victims of crime, including but not limited to victims of sexual abuse and trafficking, a powerful voice in the legislative process to ensure that the vulnerable are protected and those harmed by crime can secure justice and accountability. VPI is in strong support of SCR 3 and, if passed, looks forward to participating in the process and being a resource during the interim. We thank you for your consideration and we urge your support of SCR 3. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee and staff. My name is Rick McCann. For the record, I am here representing the Nevada Association of Public Safety Officers, the Nevada Law Enforcement Coalition, Teamsters Locals 14 and 986, because they don't like this stuff either. Let's face it, you guys get it. I don't have to add anything to it. I'm just going to add a resounding ditto. Maybe today's the second to the last day. I'll put a true dad on that. You guys get it, and we want you to support this bill. Thank you.
Marco Rauda, M-A-R-C-O-R-A-U-D-A, representing the Nevada Policy Council on Human Trafficking. We are in support of this bill. We want to thank the chair, the committee, the sponsor, and all of the interested parties for being here today. We also want to thank the sponsor for accepting the amendments that we have provided, ensuring that there is victim input, as well as for this study not to be too burdensome on the organizations that are providing support to the victims. Thank you.
Hello, Chair Scheibel and members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. My name is Kanani Espinoza, here today on behalf as a member of the Junior League of Las Vegas. As a volunteer in the space, especially down in Southern Nevada, we appreciate your attention and hope that you pass SCR 3. Thank you.
Michael Flores on behalf of the University of Nevada, Reno, and I want to start by saying that I agree with Senator Hansen and that we've not done enough in this space. And when Governor Sandoval was governor, had done a number of things in this space, and unfortunately the needle has not been moved enough. And so as president, we've been working with St. Jude's in Southern Nevada and their new healing center, and have been utilizing the resources of the university to support through our school of social work, medical school, school of public health, to really create a formal partnership with St. Jude's so we can be on the ground and be more helpful in this space. And so we're in full support.
Thank you, Chair Scheibel, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. My name is John Jones, here on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association in support of SCR 3. I want to thank the proponents of the bill for reaching out to us in the interim regarding this. We are very supportive of the statewide review, especially the focus on developing law enforcement strategies that will assist and enhance both the investigation and prosecution of human trafficking cases. We are supportive, and we urge its passage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Looks like we've concluded in-person support testimony on SCR 3, unless there's someone coming forward in Las Vegas. Okay, come on up.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kasia Caldwell, K-A-S-I-A-C-A-L-D-W-E-L-L. I'm a member of the Junior League of Las Vegas, and I'm also a licensed clinical social worker who has spent the last 2 decades providing supportive services and mental health therapy to survivors of trauma, many of whom are victims of human trafficking. I'm also the founder of a nonprofit mental health organization that supports veterans, first responders, and vulnerable populations throughout Nevada. I'm here today to offer my strong support for Senate Concurrent Resolution 3. This issue is not just professional for me, it is deeply personal. More than 25 years ago, at 15 years old, I was homeless in Las Vegas. I spent nights on the Strip, at bus stops, and on random couches. I was young, disconnected from family, and surviving in a city that often overlooks its most vulnerable. I now understand how close I came to being trafficked. I was approached by adults offering shelter and rides and other things, but I was lucky. A combination of chance, resilience, and the support of a few safe adults kept me from falling prey to a system that has consumed far too many young people in our state. Unfortunately, most of the survivors I work with were not so lucky. I've treated clients as young as 12 years old who were trafficked by family members and adults and who are forced into the trade under the threat of violence. Many are still trapped in cycles of addiction, poverty, and trauma because the systems meant to help them are fragmented, underfunded, and not trauma-informed. These individuals need more than rescue. They need comprehensive, long-term support rooted in dignity and care. SCR 3 calls for this broad, in-depth study of how Nevada can improve this legal, clinical, and community-based response to trafficking. It invites the voices of frontline providers, law enforcement, child welfare professionals, and most importantly, survivors themselves. It urges us to look at how we can align resources, strengthen mandated reporting, enforce standards, and expand alternatives to criminalization for victims. This resolution is about accountability, but also about possibility. Nevada has a chance to become a national leader in building a coordinated, survivor-centered response to human trafficking. Passing SCR 3 is not the end, but a critical beginning. I urge you to pass this resolution not just as a clinician or an advocate, but as someone who was almost a statistic herself. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your commitment to protecting our most vulnerable Nevadans.
All right, now I don't see anybody else coming forward to give in-person support testimony on SCR 3, so we will go to the phones, please, for support testimony.
If you would like to testify in support of SCR 3, please press *9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window. Christina, you are unmuted and may continue.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Christina Vela, Christina, V like Victor, ELA. I am the CEO of St. Jude's Ranch for Children, and I'm here in support of SCR3 as a direct service provider to child victims of sex trafficking at the Healing Center. For many children that have been recovered and are in need of providing critical services, we understand the depth of knowledge that is needed as a community to respond and to support children and Nevadans that are victims of human trafficking. Developing a system of care is critical to ensuring that our survivors, our victims, transition to becoming survivors, and then, of course, being thriving members of society. Additionally, it's critical to understand the pathways that children and young people end up becoming victims of trafficking so that we can, number one, identify how to prevent child sex trafficking from ever happening, two, to support the victims, and number three, to hold the perpetrators of crime to justice. Thank you all for continually prioritizing protecting Nevadans and children against human trafficking. The pathway to hope and healing is possible when we all work together. So thank you so much. We are definitely in support of SCR3. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee, for making time for this important bill today. My name is Leanne McAllister, McAllister. I am the Executive Director of the Nevada chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And on behalf of the 290 pediatrician members of the Nevada AAP, I am in strong support of SCR3. In my written testimony, I included information about the American Academy of Pediatrics' extensive and reaffirmed policy statement, Global Human Trafficking and Child Victimization, and wish to share it with all involved. The American Academy of Pediatrics calls for a public health approach that incorporates rigorous research, medical education, collaboration, and advocacy. It is my sincere hope that should SCR3 pass, that the leaders of the Nevada chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics will be involved in the creation and implementation of the study. And just speaking personally, sign me up. I am ready to help in any way that I can. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Trina Musa, and I am also a member of the Judiciary of Las Vegas, and I also have a nonprofit called Power My Achieve. I am here to express my strong support for SCR3. Human trafficking is often misunderstood. It's not just the trafficking of children or women. It's the exploitation of any person through force, fraud, or coercion for labor or commercial sex. And yes, it also affects men. It affects women and children of all backgrounds. Nevada sadly leads the nation with the highest number of trafficking victims per capita. This includes both U.S. citizens and foreign nationals, with many cases right here in Southern Nevada. This is not just a crisis, it is a call to action. SCR3 gives Nevada the opportunity to go beyond headlines and conduct a strategic, in-depth study of how we're addressing human trafficking, from the gaps in legal protection to the inconsistencies in training, data, and survivor services. It invites us to examine what's working, what isn't, and how we can lead with innovation, care, and accountability. As someone who has supported nonprofits like Satan's Ranch for Children and the Cupcake Girls, I've seen how vital it is to provide trauma-informed, long-term support for survivors beyond rescue. We must stand for victims, women, men, and children who deserve systems that will protect, not judge, not overlook them. I urge you to support SCR3 and help Nevada become a national leader in both prevention and protection. Thank you.
Hello, Chairwoman Scheibel and committee members. For the record, my name is Michelle Tombari, MICHELETOMBARI. I strongly support SCR3. I am a member of Junior League and did research on human trafficking last year. My committee looked at what the current situation is in Nevada and what other states are doing. We produced an informational booklet titled Human Trafficking. It can happen to anyone, no matter race, age, or gender. I was shocked to learn the range of demographic profiles and the high prevalence of sex and labor trafficked victims in Nevada. These are vulnerable people, mostly women and children, looking to believe a trafficker's promises of a job, a home, money, protection, or love. They often do not realize they are being groomed for a life of trafficking until it is too late. If they do manage to escape their trafficker, the trauma and basic needs of these victims are immense. The barriers to resuming any resemblance to a normal life are huge. Victims are typically left without money or any kind of support, and most do not even have proof of their own identity. Many victims have urgent physical and mental health issues that need to be addressed. We must acknowledge these needs are unique and provide services and treatment programs that are specific to those needs. Awareness and prevention campaigns specific to Nevada are also critical. Let us pretend you see a teenage girl sitting in the passenger seat of a car and she is covertly showing you a hand symbol with her thumb being trapped under her fingers. Do you know what that means? This is a symbol for trafficking. Would you know who to call to get her help? Nevadans need to recognize human trafficking,
we need to keep,
and we need a dedicated...
We need to keep testimony factual, so if you could please wrap up.
Okay, I have lived in Nevada for over 30 years, and I am frequently disappointed when national studies come out showing Nevada is at the top of the This is Bad list or at the bottom of the This is Good list. Unfortunately, human trafficking is one of those issues. Nevada consistently ranks near the top in prevalence for trafficking, while specific targeted care for survivors is lacking. While CR3 is not addressing specific remedies, it is a start for the state to research the issue of human trafficking in a comprehensive way and recommend critical programs to get Nevada off the top of the bad list. The issue of human trafficking in Nevada needs our attention now. Please approve SCR3. Thank you.
Chair, you have no additional callers at this time.
All right, thank you so much. That concludes testimony in support of SCR3. Anybody wishing to give opposition testimony is invited forward to do so now here in Carson City or Las Vegas. I don't see anybody coming forward, so we'll go to the phones for opposition testimony to SCR3.
Chair, your public line is open and working. You have no additional callers at this time.
All right, anybody wishing to testify in neutral on SCR3 is invited forward to do so now. I don't see anybody coming forward, so we'll go to the phone lines.
Chair, you currently have no additional callers at this time.
All right, then that brings us to the conclusion of testimony. I will invite the presenters back. Sounds like they don't have any closing remarks, but we do very much appreciate you being here to present and answering all of our questions. That concludes our hearing on SCR3. I will now close the hearing and move on to the last item on our agenda, which is public comment. Anybody wishing to give public comment on an item relating to the Judiciary Committee, but not about either of the bill or the resolution that we heard today, is invited forward to do so now in person. I don't see anybody coming forward in Las Vegas or Carson City, so we'll go to the phones for public comment.
If you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now. Chair, you have no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
All right, then that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting today. And with that, we are adjourned.